All right, so to check your understanding, we're going to go ahead and see which ones of these may need simplified. So I'm just checking for number one, right? Number one thing that I check for would be I'm going to simplify any radicals. So let's do that first. So on number 3, the square root of 6 cannot be simplified. So number 3 is simplified. 3a, 3b, though the square roots of 4s, these can be simplified. So we'll have to simplify these guys. On number 4a, the square root of 12, that can simplify. So we'll have to simplify that one. And number 4b, all of these can simplify. So I'm asterisking all the ones that need simplified before I begin. Number 5, again, there's going to be some simplification that happens here. And number 3b, I see some simplification that can happen here. Number 6a can simplify. Number 6b, the square root of 10 cannot simplify. And so now that we've identified which ones can simplify, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. So number 3a, after I simplify, the next thing I do is identify like radicals. And so I'm going to identify that these are both like radicals. So I have 7 plus 9 root 6. Which is 7 plus 9 is 16 root 6, and this one is fully simplified. Oh, and then step 3 would, after you identify them, then you would combine the coefficients of the radicals. All right, so I already said that on 3b we're going to have to simplify. So 3b, 12 square root 4 minus 5 square root 4 plus 2 square root 4. Whoops, I don't know why I wrote a 2 here. Excuse me. This should be a 4, and this should be a 4. All right, so the square root of 4 is 2, so this is going to be 12 times square root of 4 is 2, minus 5 times the square root of 4, which is also 2, plus 2 times the square root of 4, which is also 2. And so then we would multiply. So 2 times 12 is 24, minus 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 times 2 is 4, which is 24 minus 10, which is 14, plus 4, so 18. So 3b, you should have gotten 18. All right, number 4a. Number 4a, we do have some simplifying. So 4a, only this one right here, the square root of 12, is able to be simplified. So I have 8 root 3 minus, I'm going to rewrite this square root 12 as the square root of 4 times 3, and then plus 3 root 3. So the 8 root 3 will remain. The square root of 4 is 2, so that's going to pop out as a perfect square. 2, and then root 3 has to remain as in the root, and then plus 3 root 3. And now I'm going to, now that I've simplified my radical, I'll identify any like radicals. And I notice that these are all alike. They all have the same radicand. So I can combine their coefficients. So I've got 8 minus 2 plus 3, and then square root 3. 8 minus 2 is 6. 6 plus 3 is 9. So this is 9 square root 3. All right, the next one. 4b. 4b again has simplification happening. So we've got the square root of 18, which will need simplified, and the square root of 8 will need simplified, and the square root of 32 will also need simplified. All right, so square root of 18 plus the square root of 8 plus the square root of 32. I'm going to rewrite 18 as 9 times 2 plus, I'll rewrite 8 as 4 times 2, and 32 is 16 times 2. And then I can split each of these radicals apart. That's square root of 9 times the square root of 2, plus the square root of 4 times the square root of 2, plus the square root of 16 times the square root of 2. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 2 remains. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 2 remains. And the square root of 16 is 4. And the square root of 2 remains. All right, now after I've simplified my radicals, I identify my like radicals. They are all alike. And now I'm going to combine the coefficients. So my coefficients are 3 plus 2 plus 4, square root 2's. 3 plus 2 plus 4 is 9, square root 2's. All right, number 5a. I notice that this is a cube root now. So remember, a cube root, we're looking for perfect cubes. All right, the cube root of 2 cannot simplify, but this cube root of 16 is able to be simplified. I'm going to rewrite this as the cube root of 8 times 2 and minus the cube root of 2. The cube root of 8, I'll rewrite that separately. The cube root of 8 times the cube root of 2 minus the cube root of 2. Okay, the cube root of 8 is 2, right? 2 to the third power. So the cube root of 8 is 2. So I have 2 cube root 2 minus 1. I'm going to go ahead and put a coefficient of a 1 there, cube root 2. And now that I've simplified my radical, I identify that these are both alike. They're both cube roots and both 2's. So I can go ahead and combine my coefficients, which is 2 minus 1, and then cube root 2. And this is 1 cube root 2, or just cube root 2. You don't even need to put the 1 there. For 5b, I've identified that this radical will need to simplify, the cube root of 24. So the cube root of 3 will remain cube root 3, plus the cube root of 24, I'm going to rewrite it as the cube root of 8 times the cube root of 3. And then the 16 cannot be simplified. So the cube root of 8 right here, that's 2. So I've got 1 cube root 3 plus 2 cube root 3. Again, this is a cube root of 8 is 2, and there's my cube root 3. And then plus 16. I've identified that these two are my like radicals. So I will put their coefficients together. And then my constant term will remain. And when I combine these, I get 3 cube root 3 plus 16. And generally speaking, we like to write the 16 first. So I'm going to rewrite this as 16 plus 3 cube root 3. All right, the last one, number 6a. Number 6a, I see that the the square root of 9 is 3, so I'm going to simplify those. That's going to be 3 times square root 9 plus 5 square root 9, which is, the square root of 9 is 3, so that's going to be 3 times 3, and plus 5, and the square root of 9 is 3. So that's 3 times 3, which is 9. 9 plus 5 times 3 is 15, which is 26. And finally, for number 6b, neither one of these will simplify. So we've got 3 root 10 plus 5 root 10. They're both the same radical. So I can combine my coefficients, 3 plus 5 root 10, which is 8 root 10. Okay. All right, the last one, it says to write these using radical expressions, then find the sum. So I'm going to rewrite these. Remember that this is the 1/2 power, and anything to the 1/2 power, like a, the square root of a is the same thing as a to the 1/2, right? Because your index right here is a 1, or sorry, your exponent is a 1, and your index is a 2. So I'm going to rewrite this as the square root of 25a squared b plus the square root of 4ab. Oh, that's a cubed, excuse me. Now, I notice that this one cannot simplify, but this one, I don't know why I put a 4 there. I apologize. The 4 went inside the radical. So this one can simplify. The square root of 25 is 5 the square root, how many pairs can you pull out of 3? Well, I can pull out 1 pair, so an A will come out with 1 left over, so there'll be an A inside the radical. And b to the first cannot come out, right? And then I've got plus the square root of 4. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, and then AB cannot simplify. And now I see that I have the same radicand, and so I can combine my coefficients. My coefficients are 5a and plus 2. So because this one has a variable and this one does not, all I can do is write this as 5a plus 2 and then square root ab. All right, guys, this was the notes. I hope that you took copious notes, and I will see you in class tomorrow.